What's going on, guys? I am here at my 2002 Yamaha R6. Had starting problems last night. Playing around with it, I realized that there's a bad battery. So in this video, I'm going to be zeroing in on what it looks like if you have a bad battery and how you can check to see. So whenever you check your battery, you want to make sure it has a full charge. And if you can't get your car or motorcycle to charge it, then plug in a charger. I've got this this cable, this little charger adapter thing. It came with a little that little battery charger. So I've got that hardwired straight in. So if I ever want to charge the battery, because I let it sit for like a month or whatever, and hey, now my battery is it's got to be charged, I could just plug a charger in, and then that'd be good. I'll just charge it for a couple hours, come back, and then I'm good to go. But in this situation, I can't, because when I charge it, my voltage keeps dropping, which I'm going to show. And I'm going to show how you can check your voltage on the battery too. So types of batteries really quick. This is a sealed battery, maintenance-free battery, whatever you want to call it. You can't take off the little caps to each of the cells like you can on. Let me show this battery. It's my other motorcycle, FZR 600 with an R6 custom R6 body that now has transmission problems, so it's been sitting for a while and it's dirty. So each of these 6 cells puts out about 2 volts. All those 2 volts adds up to 12.5 volts. So each one puts out like a little over 2 volts. So each cell adds up to all the cells together adds up to 12.5 volts. Now that's what the voltage that you're looking for. So if you check the battery, which this one, it probably doesn't put out hardly any voltage. It's been sitting for so long. The longer it sits, the lower the voltage gets. It doesn't hold perfectly well. So like the older the battery is, the lower the voltage is going to show, unless it's got a charge on it. If it's got a charge on it, then it'll be good. But these, you can take these little caps off, and you can put water in. Now, when you get them new, they have this electrolyte fluid stuff in. And so you want to take those little caps out. If you don't have the sealed battery like I do, you want to take these little caps out and put more water in. Whenever you do that, you want it to be clean. Man, I hate mopeds. They're so loud and annoying, and they smell. So whenever you do that, you want to take these little caps off. You want to make sure it's clean. You want to make sure the top of the battery is clean, because you don't want any of that dirt inside the battery. So take the caps off, pour water in. You don't have to top it off. You just have to make sure when you look inside, you can see water covering the lead, if you can see lead. You don't have to fill it up all the way until it's like overflowing. If you do, you have like this little overflow hose on the side of these batteries, and it's going to overflow somehow. That's not in a car battery. It doesn't have a little overflow hose. So, but that's that. That's the non-sealed, non-maintenance-free batteries. So put this back on. If you guys want to watch videos on this bike, I've got a bunch of videos on it, on the different stuff I've done to it. Right now, it's been sitting for a while. So back to this one though. Okay, so right now I'm going to check this voltage, and this is called a voltmeter or ohm meter, or a volt and ohm meter, whatever you want to call it. It has different things that you can check, but right now I'm only talking about volts DC. You see this over here says volts AC, and sometimes they have neither one of these symbols. It just has these numbers, and you're thinking like, man, I don't know what to put it on. Like what's ohms? What's all this stuff? So if it doesn't have VDC, it would have a line with some like a straight line with some dashes on top of the line. That indicates volts DC, with DC, which is direct current, which is what the battery puts out. Now volts AC is usually indicated by a wave. So you'll see a wave and you'll know like, okay, well that's not it, because it's the wave one. AC is alternating current, and the wave is supposed to symbolize the alternating current of electricity. So alternating current is actually what your stator puts out. Stator is what charges the battery. We're going to check that too, but we don't have to check it on alternating current. We still check that on direct current, because the voltage that comes off the stator goes through what's called the regulator rectifier, and that switches it from alternating current over to direct current so that it can charge the battery. Okay, so while the bike is running, oh, what am I doing? That's gotta be on. So while the bike's running, the voltage that the bike is putting off should be a little bit higher than the 12.5 volts that the battery is supposed to run at. So right now, I said it's supposed to run at 12.5. It's at 12.26. That means the battery is not. It doesn't have a full charge. So it either means the battery is not good or it doesn't have a full charge. Now you can put a slow charge on it, and you can see, like, when you charge it up, you're going to get it up to about 12.5 volts. But if I keep the camera on it, it's going to end up dropping to 12.25, and then it's going to keep dropping 12.24 the longer I let it sit. So that's that. Now it still starts. Well, at least the voltage isn't low enough to keep it from starting. Alright, so bike starts up. Now, if I check it, I'm doing this the same way. I didn't show what I did before, but I put the 2 leads for this. So this is on 20 volts DC because the battery is a little bit less than 20. So I'm checking 20 volts DC. So I'm putting that right in the middle of the screw on the battery. Red's positive, black's negative. Now I'm looking at it. So at idle, 12.8. That's good for an idle voltage. I mean, I would like it if it were a little bit higher. Oh, there we go, 12.94. Maybe I just don't have a good connection. So anyway, if I rev it up, the voltage is going to go up a little bit. 13.2, 13.3. Sometimes you can see up to about 14 volts, and that's good. That's a good charge voltage. So it could be showing this low voltage because the battery isn't accepting the charge that well. We don't really know. But I do know that voltage is enough for the battery to get a charge. It's a motorcycle. It doesn't consume that much electricity. So now I'm doing this again, putting these leads back on the battery one-handed. You get good at doing stuff with one hand if you're making YouTube videos, with the other hand being a camera. Well, not my other hand is not a camera, but I have a camera in that hand. So now we're watching the voltage drop. We just saw it drop from 12.42, 12.41, 12.40, 12.39. It's just going to keep dropping. Now this is telling me that the battery is not holding a charge. It's supposed to stay steady at 12.5, but it's not, or somewhere above 12.5, but it's not. It just keeps dropping. So that means the battery is not good, and that means, unfortunately, my stator is good, but I've got to get a new battery. So that's pretty much all you need to know. Now, the things that was happening when I was trying to start the bike, it felt like something was physically holding the engine from starting. Like I guess the starter couldn't really get enough juice to spin the engine. So when the solenoid here gave it that initial kick to has this little which one of these wires? So the solenoid is basically a big fat relay, and when you press the start button there, it tells the solenoid, hey, open a really fat connection between these 2 screws here, that one and that one, so that the starter can get this fat amount of voltage just to get the bike going. Now if your bike's not starting at all, let's say you press this button and you don't hear any clicks, you don't hear anything, it doesn't sound like that button's doing anything, it could be a problem with the switch itself, which is a little bit harder to troubleshoot because you'd actually have to get down to this little wire harness that comes off of the switch assembly and connect the 2 wire jumper the 2 wires that go into the switch, so that you're simulating what the switch does whenever you press that button. And you can also test coming off the connector with the voltmeter there. You can put it on this continuity test, which not all of them beep like that. They might just show all zeros, showing that there's a good connection. But you can put that on the leads that come off of the button, so that when you press this button, like you would have like a friend press it while you have both of the leads going into the connector, and that will show you like, hey, your starter button's good if your voltmeter, or you're using it to measure the continuity at that point. So you'll hear it beep if you have one that beeps, or it'll just it'll zero out on that little display, and that'll tell you, hey, your start button works. So you know your start button works. You move over here to your solenoid. You can check the solenoid. The quick way to do it: have the bike in neutral. Make sure that when you lift it up on the two wheels, you can roll it forward, you can roll it backwards. It is most definitely in neutral. And then you can take something that's metal and you can connect these two screw posts. And when you do, that opens a connection up straight from the battery to the starter. The solenoid is it's a switch basically. It's a little switch that takes a signal from that starter button. And once that starter button has the connection to, I think it's negative actually, the starter button. So once it provides the ground connection, I'm not positive on that though. I'm not positive on the ground connection. Ha 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 ha. Once it provides that negative connection or positive connection, however it's wired, it will open up a connection between these two terminals that I don't have the camera on. It'll open up the connection between these two terminals, and when it does, the starter will spin. So if you put something like you get a wrench and you connect the tops of these two, you just like put the wrench straight on to hold it. It'll spark a little bit, but you'll hear your starter spin. And if you do that, then you know that okay, well, something's wrong electrically with the bike. If you don't feel comfortable digging into your wire diagram and tracing out all the wires, take it to a shop, have them do it. If you don't really know what you're doing, it's probably better anyway just to take it to a shop and say like, hey, something's wrong with the wiring. I can get the starter to go, but I can get the starter to spin, but the bike's not kicking over. Or not, sorry, what did I say? I can get the starter to spin, but when I press the button, it doesn't do anything. So, that's what the problem is, and then hopefully they won't just take your word for it. They'll look into it and not just start replacing stuff. But so that's how you would check your start button. You can try. I mean, solenoids are cheap. You can try buying another solenoid, popping it in. But this is supposed to be positive because that connects straight to the battery. So you want to check that connection. This other one over here goes straight to the battery. This one has a special connection that goes through it, but there's only one wire that comes from the solenoid that provides. There's only one wire that comes from the solenoid to give it a connection. So it looks like Yamaha did some little fancy jump ring stuff, and I think this blue wire with the white stripe is the one that comes from the start button. That's typically how Yamaha wires the bikes. They usually leave the wire colors the same between all their different motorcycles, and I do remember blue-white being something like that. Red-white, I believe, goes to the engine kill switch, so you'd want to check that too. If you have a bad connection on your kill switch, I can press the start button, it doesn't do anything. So what else can I talk about? So if your stator, I don't actually know where the stator is in this bike. I haven't taken it apart far enough to see, and I'm not going to try to point out stuff that I think may be the stator. But if your battery's not getting voltage, like let's say you give it a good charge, you get your battery up to 12.5 volts, and you got it on a full charge, you can start the bike, but while you're checking the voltage and it's running, it's not charging. It could be your voltage regulator is having problems, which your voltage regulator is a finned thing that, where did Yamaha put it on my bike? Where are you, voltage regulator? Anyway, it's a finned thing. Go on eBay and type in like whatever your bike is, and type in that and the voltage regulator or rectifier. It's called voltage regulator, voltage rectifier, or regulator rectifier. But yeah, just look up what it looks like, and then look for that part on your bike. And whenever you get to the part, take this connector off. And you can take the connector off and you can look at the actual plastic connector itself, and it'll be melted or the pins will be scorched or something like that. And that's always been the way that I could tell that the regulator was bad, is it's overheated. Now Yamahas, they typically all look the same. It's just this big fat piece that's about this size, and it has all these metal fins all over it, just to cool off. The older ones didn't have fins, like the one on the FZR that came in the early 90s, it didn't have fins. The common upgrade was to switch to the Yamaha R6 style with all the fins on it so that it could cool off faster. So voltage regulator could be a problem if it's not if your bike's not getting enough voltage to charge. Stator could be a problem if it's not getting enough voltage to charge. As your stator goes out, it might not have enough voltage to charge at low RPM, like at idle. So if you sit in a lot of traffic, I would just look into changing out the stator anyway. But if you're always riding on the freeway and you're at a high enough RPM to where the battery is charging itself, because the faster the copper coil moves around the iron that is around it, the more voltage it's going to generate. That's how it produces electricity. Is you're moving copper around iron, so it ends up creating voltage. So that was discovered in like early 1900s or something like that, 1800s. But that's really all I can say. I can't think of anything else that I can say regarding checking this. I mean, you check the voltage, make sure that you have voltage. Your connections, that's going to be a big thing, actually. I should have mentioned that earlier on in the video. Your connections need to be clean. If your connections are dirty, then your battery is not going to get the voltage that it needs to charge. So if your connections are dirty, it could just be as simple as cleaning your connections, which I should have mentioned that earlier in the video. So unscrew these screws, clean the connections, or just spray some battery terminal cleaner, or that penetrant, the what do you call it? The penetrating sprays. They usually work with taking off corrosion in the battery. Now the buildup is not battery acid. The buildup that you would see on the battery terminals is it's actually corrosion, oxidation. Same thing as like rust or something like that. It's just the metal being exposed to the open air and having electricity flowing through it. The electricity, I think that makes it corrode slower if it has electricity flowing through it. But, or no, wait, maybe it's faster. I forget. I'm not a science major. So, believe it or not, I'm an IT major. Anyway, that's all. I mean, I can't think of anything else to check. But whenever you do check your voltage on your bike, you want to make sure that your battery did have a full charge, so that way you can actually start it up, you can run it a little bit, and then shut it off, and then see what your battery does. If your voltage is dropping coming off the battery, if the stator is putting out the right amount of voltage, and your regulator is regulating voltage like it's supposed to, so it'll end up starting. That's it. Get a good wire diagram if you have to troubleshoot, and learn how to read them, I guess, if you have to. That's all. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, favorite, all that good stuff. Check out my other videos. I have a playlist of other motorcycle stuff, other car stuff, things I did to my car, and lots of interesting things. So thanks a lot. Have a great day.